Reusing found footage is a practice nearly as old as the cinema itself. One of the earliest known examples is from an 1898 Parisian exhibition supposedly showing the apprehension at the heart of the Dreyfus affair. But in reality, the film was just repurposed stock footage of a military parade. Recycled footage has been used in a number of innovative ways throughout film history. Old material can give rise to new ideas, which then helps raise our collective media literacy and understanding of the filmmaking process. An early example of mainstream Hollywood repurposing and recontextualizing old footage to make new meaning occurs in the Marx Brothers satirical war film Duck Soup. In the heat of battle, Groucho desperately calls out for reinforcements.
This is Firefly talking. Send help at once.
Help is on the way.
Carry on, men. Help is on the way.
What follows is a montage of newsreel footage that would certainly be recognized as old newsreel footage to audiences even in 1933. In their original context, these images were presented as news items. Here, in this context, however, they just look ridiculous and very silly. On the surface level, this kind of incongruent absurdity inspires laughter or mild confusion. Comedy also comes from the willful reappropriation. The act of juxtaposing unrelated recycled film is the joke, or a significant part of the joke, at least. The audience probably had never seen newsreel footage isolated, taken completely out of context, and inserted into an altogether different genre of film. This is an aha moment. The realization that this type of editing is possible, and that any piece of film can be spliced into any other, regardless of how disparate or unrelated, and thereby create something entirely new and wholly unexpected. And experiencing news imagery so wildly misplaced might make you ponder the artificiality and purposeful construction behind the production and exhibition of newsreels and the ways in which news is presented, received, and absorbed as representing reality. So the experience is likely to make the viewer become self-aware of their role as a consumer of media, both in the present moment and in the past when they may have encountered the same kind of footage in a newsreel context. Furthermore, memories of how material was used in the past invite comparison with how it's being repurposed in the present context, thereby encouraging awareness of the artifice of the cinema in general. Experimental filmmaker Bruce Conner drew inspiration specifically from Duck Soup. He built an entire film out of newsreels, stock footage, clips from old B-movies, and military training films. They were presented out of context and arranged in a way that created a new narrative, or really more like several Frankensteinian quasi-narratives. Near the beginning of a movie, Conner edits in an iconic full-screen "The End" title card, the likes of which audiences at the time would have seen hundreds of times. But again, this is at the beginning of the film, so the image is familiar, but putting the end at the beginning signals to the audience that they're about to see familiar imagery rearranged in ways that are unfamiliar and used to convey different meanings than those they're accustomed to. And as the film goes on, Conner weaves together disparate filmic elements. He uses a shot of a submarine military captain looking through the periscope. He then cuts to a softcore pornography clip of a woman undressing. He then cuts back to the captain. Of course, our interpretation is that the captain is reacting to the scantily clad woman, and the captain responds by launching missiles. On a deeper level, the viewers are invited to consider the motivations behind Conner's hand-picked extracted elements, as well as the possible meaning created by their new juxtapositions. It's probably not a coincidence that the footage comes from military training films and softcore pornography. Conner has created a message that connects military might, sexual desire, destruction, and annihilation. Again, zooming out to the macro scale, on the most profound level, recontextualizing film elements, assembling disparate but familiar imagery to construct an artistic filmic collage, encourages the viewer to step back and ponder the artificially constructed nature of media and the role of media in our culture in general. It's akin to Brechtian theater with the house lights turned up. With the viewer's new awareness, a challenge is posed to traditional media's power to present ideologically loaded imagery without unpacking the connections between footage from multiple sources assembled into a montage. Montage theory was devised by the early Soviet filmmaker-philosophers, among the first serious scholars of cinema to ponder the potential of the new medium. At the core of Soviet montage theory is the tenet that the soul of cinema centers around film editing. Specifically, Eisenstein believed that the meaning of any film sequence is constructed entirely in the mind of the viewer in response to the juxtaposition of contrasting images shown on screen. Considering a movie, one can clearly see how the contrasting images of the submariner and the woman undressing, for example, created meaning for the viewer. Lev Kuleshov, Eisenstein's contemporary among Soviet film theorists and a psychologist, discovered the eponymously titled Kuleshov effect, demonstrating that the actor's emotional state is understood by the viewer through the prism of the order and pacing of the shots edited before and after we see the actor. Recall how the Kuleshov effect gives meaning to the submariner's facial expression after the image of the woman undressing in a movie. Now let's fast forward a few decades, with major advances in compositing technology. In Zelig, Woody Allen's character is composited into archival footage of Adolf Hitler at Nuremberg. The film is edited in such a way that it shows a fictional mental patient named Leonard Zelig interrupting the Nazi rally and eventually, unintentionally, upstaging the Fuhrer. This compositing technology was used even more extensively for comedic effect in Forrest Gump, in which Tom Hanks' character appears beside President Nixon and seated on a couch next to John Lennon during an iconic interview with TV host Dick Cavett. All the while, as the technology and the techniques advanced, so did our collective media savvy. Today, in 2025, everyone has access to pre-existing footage and the tools to edit and manipulate it in infinite ways.
Harry and Meghan, who is your favorite Harry Potter character?
Hagrid.
We're entering an era where anyone can be a Bruce Conner or a newsreel mashup maker. Everyday users can take news footage of a debate and add music and turn it into a song and auto-tune the candidates' voices to make them sing their debate responses.
The name is Mom Donnie.
You know, I was shot in the back of Yellow Cab in 1992.
In fact, this type of repurposing is becoming commonplace on video sharing platforms like TikTok and YouTube. For content creators on social media, their raw materials include the endless supply of pre-existing media that's already out there, waiting to be ripped out of context and repurposed in such a way that their origin as media fragments are still recognizable and understood. But with those kind of tools available to anybody and for any purpose, it's a good thing that our collective media literacy has gotten so advanced, because we're going to need it right now.
President Trump shared a fake AI-generated video on social media showing former President Barack Obama being arrested in the Oval Office.